Hello to all you beautiful souls out there and welcome back to Girl Ascending. I thought it would be nice to do another little tarot chats video today, specifically focusing on the retrogrades that we're going through at the moment. I'm all ready with some coffee because we're in Maybon now, in my little pumpkin mug. And I also thought it would be cool to just put a nice candle on as well. So this is something that I've ordered from a small company called A Slow Sunday, and it says the fire is the main comfort of camp, whether in summer or winter, which is a quote from Henry David Thoreau. And it is the cozy campfire candle with all those lovely warming scents that we think of when we think of Maybon and the second harvest. That's beautiful. So let's get this on the go and then let's dig into what is going on with all these many retrogrades that are hitting us hard at the moment and see what cards are coming up for us as well. Okay, so feeling the cozy vibes now. We've got our cozy campfire candle on, got some nice coffee, so let's have a chill and a chat and talk about what exactly is going on. So if you've been feeling at the moment like everything is just a bit off, things have been going wrong, or things have just been shifting, and some of the shifts have been like, oh, okay, I'm quite into this, I quite like where this direction is going. All these things are totally normal in a retrograde, but at the moment we have six retrogrades hitting us all at the same time, and these will all last until the start of October. So we've got another kind of week, 10 days or so of this energy. And it's not something to necessarily be worried about, but it's just something to be informed about. So let's go through all these retrogrades and talk about what is happening, which planets are involved, okay? Okay, so retrograde number one that we currently are experiencing is of course the most famous one. It's Mercury in retrograde. And this is a time where things generally tend to go wrong with communication. So this can either be in person or with electronic items as well. So if you're having some phone issues, some computer issues, things not working, crashing, unexpected problems when it comes to electronic communication, this is super typical of Mercury in retrograde, and it will pass when this period is over. And again, if you're feeling there's kind of conflicts with people, that communication styles are not matching, that there's kind of some clashes going on, again, this is totally normal for Mercury in retrograde. And the great thing about a retrograde with all of them is that although the planets are appearing to spin backwards, obviously that's not actually what's happening, it's just how it's looking to us. So we always want to kind of step out of the fourth wall in a retrograde and remind ourselves, okay, I am experiencing these things and this is what is happening through my experience of them, but at any time I can choose to step outside of that and decide how that's going to affect me. So if there's a situation where someone isn't communicating with you very well and it's making you feel upset, you have the power to step outside of that and be the one that says, okay, this is obviously not a great time to be having these conversations. Let me take a step back, reassess, dive in a bit later. No, dive back in a bit later. And the same with electronic things. So maybe this isn't a great time period to be sending off proposals, signing legal documents, all that kind of stuff. You maybe want to delay it until a little bit further into October, I would suggest. But with Mercury specifically in retrograde, it's a good time to maybe take a step back and do a bit of, not necessarily self-care, but it's that idea of actually kind of taking your time and doing things a bit slower. So in our modern culture, obviously we're always rushing, there's always so much going on, that these retrogrades are saying to us, okay, well, let's just slow down a bit. And instead of constantly feeling that we have to be available to other people, we can actually be available for ourselves first. You know, not everything needs you to communicate with it immediately. You don't have to be available for people all the time, even if that's how society is socially making you feel. Okay, so the second retrograde that we're currently experiencing at the moment is Pluto. And when we think of Pluto, it's often a planet that we associate with maybe darker things, shadow work, but specifically with power. So with this Pluto retrograde, what we really want to be focusing on is how are we experiencing our own power? Are we giving that away to other people? Are we in situations where we feel powerless, like someone is pushing stuff onto us that we feel we have to take on, that we are struggling in that burden from someone else? But it can also be subliminal as well. So taking my own situation as an example, I think sometimes it's always best to speak from experience. So I am a single parent, and a lot of people try to push their own narratives of what that means my life looks like onto me, and that is something that I can either choose to take on or choose to reassess and tell my own story. And I think it's always better to stand obviously in your own power and tell your own story your way. You know, you don't have to give away your power to someone else to be liked, to be accepted. And when Pluto is in retrograde, we really want to be thinking about power balances in our lives. And it sounds quite straightforward when we talk about it in an abstract context, but actually taking control of your power can feel very uncomfortable, especially if you're not used to doing it, if you're not used to saying to people, no, you know, this isn't aligning with what I want to do. I don't feel that I can take this on for you at the moment. I feel that you are trying to project onto me in a way that is making me feel uncomfortable or upset. It can be difficult to readdress that balance, because often people who've been taking advantage of you don't want you to do that. But with Pluto in retrograde at the moment, I would really encourage you to think about the power balances in your life. You know, where is that power sitting and how is that making you feel? This is a great time for introspection. When we're thinking about the spinning backwards, we're kind of thinking about retrograde within ourselves always. You know, what are these planets trying to teach us and what can we learn from them in order to benefit our lives, make things better for ourselves? Okay, so the third planet that we have in retrograde at the moment is Jupiter, and Jupiter is about work and action. So we're looking at now at what are we doing in terms of putting in the work to achieve what we want in life at the moment. And with Jupiter in retrograde, that can be a little bit more uncomfortable because it's often highlighting to us things about ourselves that maybe we try to ignore or that we don't really want to dig too deeply in with, because procrastination is a difficult topic because there are so many reasons for it. People often think, you know, if you're procrastinating or putting something off that you're lazy, but it's far from it. You know, it's very complicated and there's lots of mental health issues and questions that are all tied up in why people procrastinate and why sometimes it can be so difficult to put ourselves out there in terms of achieving our dreams when it comes to material things, with, you know, career and abundance in all forms, really. So with Jupiter in retrograde, we really want to be thinking, okay, how am I putting in the work and what can I do? Can I do more? Am I doing the right things? Am I channeling my energies in the right way to bring back towards me the abundance that I want to create for myself? So that's really what we're thinking about with Jupiter in retrograde. Okay, so planet number 4 in retrograde currently is Neptune. Neptune is obviously this blue planet, feels very watery, very dreamy, very creative, and that is really what the energy of a Neptune retrograde is bringing. So it's all about dissipating illusions, smashing through illusions. So things, stories that we may have been telling ourselves about other people, about situations, or even about ourselves, we're now kind of realizing, okay, things were not exactly how I thought they were. It's kind of like the moon in tarot coming up. It's okay, secrets are kind of coming to the surface now, and we're, you know, it can be a bit uncomfortable because when we think something about someone and then we realize that it's not actually true, it is destabilizing for our own personal ego, because the ego that lives inside all of us is always struggling to tell itself that we exist, that we're real, that we're having a human corporal experience. And that's why we often project onto other people and create negative narratives, because it's all about I exist, I'm here, I'm real. And when Neptune is in retrograde, it's that idea of actually, you know, maybe there is a bit more fluidity in terms of reality and smashing through those illusions, as I said before. So we really want to be aware of, okay, what is really going on around us? What are we telling ourselves? Which we all do, and it's normal and part of human survival, but how is it not helpful? You know, am I staying in a relationship because I'm looking for someone's potential, not their reality? Am I, you know, lying to myself about something? Am I telling myself a story about myself to protect myself that isn't actually damaging who I could be in the future? So that's kind of what we want to dig in with when Neptune is in retrograde. Okay, planet number 5 that is currently in retrograde is Uranus, or Uranus. I'm gonna go with Uranus. Call it what you want, but we know which planet that we're talking about. And when Uranus is in retrograde, it's kind of calling us back into the past and specifically to our older intentions. So whether things in our past that we wanted to accomplish, but that because of maybe moving away or a relationship or a family change, we had to put those on the back burner, are these things that maybe we want to make part of our life currently. And digging back into the past is always really, really complicated because the past exists in a combination of the reality that happened, but our memories. So there's kind of a mishmash of the two. So when Uranus is in retrograde, we kind of feel that we're being pulled back into past situations, but this is necessary in order, you know, to pull us back, to spring forward into new things, to follow that path in a more linear fashion. We have to kind of build it from the building blocks of the past, the present, in order to create the future. But when Uranus is also in retrograde, this is often a time when you get the infamous text from the ex, which happens a lot in Mercury retrograde as well. But if people specifically from your past are kind of texting you or calling back to you, or someone, you know, sends you a photo, hey, you know, I haven't spoken to you for ages, but I saw this and thought of you, it's kind of that kind of energy. So if this sort of thing is coming up for you at the moment, that is a clear sign that you are being affected by Uranus in retrograde. But during this time, we kind of really want to be thinking about how am I connecting back to my past in order to create my present self, to then move forward into a future that I am excited for, you know, that I really want to reach. Okay, and then the final planet that we have in retrograde, the last one, number 6, is Saturn. Now, when we think about Saturn, it's all about that idea of karma. So karma is a complicated topic because no one is 100% good or bad. There is always those grey areas seeping in, but there is that sort of cyclical law of nature that what you sow, you will then reap. Obviously, it's not linear, you know, it doesn't always track exactly. You know, sometimes a farmer will have a good crop, a bad crop, depending on outside conditions like the weather, you know, things that they can't control. But it's that idea of karmic cycles are really coming through, and some people will not be having a very good Saturn retrograde, and that's just how it works, unfortunately. You know, if you have been actively, purposefully doing things that were not really what you should have been doing, this may be a time when the uh-oh energy is hitting big. So do prepare yourself for that. It's nothing to be worried about, but it's very much that tower energy where we're thinking like, okay, things are really going to start to crumble down, but this is always an opportunity to rebuild and to do better. And I say this because this has been me sometimes as well, you know, where you make those decisions that are not the best. You know at the time that it's probably not the best decision to be making, but it will always forge into something better. Because often we are so plagued by choices, and this is something obviously that I see a lot with tarot as a tarot teller, tarot teacher, but what the tarot is telling us is the options, but there are no right or wrong choices. And that's really important when we're thinking about karmic cycles. It's all about the journey and about learning, because no matter what happens, the universe will find a way to support you, because the universe is not working against you. The universe is offering you choices. You are choosing them, and then the universe is creating the path, co-creating it with you as you move forward. So with Saturn in retrograde, we really want to be thinking about our own karma, and you know, there's nothing wrong with checking other people's karma around you as well. Maybe if someone hasn't been treating you very well and they get a bit of a comeuppance, that's always you know, a little treat from the universe as well. And I think it's important that we all acknowledge that we think that sometimes, because especially, you know, with tarot, but with looking at the lunar cycles, planetary living, choosing to live more connected with nature, it's really important to embrace the good and the bad and not see it as separate entities. It is one thing, and by acknowledging both sides, we're able to live in a more harmonious way, not just being kinder to ourselves, but also to other people as well. You know, we are all having this human experience together. Okay, so when it comes to tarot for retrograde, I've pulled a card already from my Bad Bitches tarot deck for today, which was the 5 of Wands. And when we're thinking about this card, we're thinking about conflict, but we're thinking about how we're letting that conflict affect us. You know, are we staying in our comfort zone because someone else is kind of hemming us in, keeping us there, or is it ourselves that we're afraid to move out of something because we don't know what is waiting for us on the other side? But the universe is really encouraging us to move. So even though the retrograde is giving the illusion of everything moving backwards, that doesn't mean that we need to stand still. This can still be a great time to plan, to think, okay, what do I want to do next? How am I going to put those steps in place so that when retrograde finishes, you're ready to kind of have that springboard to move forward. And let's see if anything else is coming through strongly today. I think this deck is so pretty for autumn. It's got these lovely gilded edges. I always find myself going back to it at this time of year. So let's see what else we have coming through. Okay, so we have the Four of Pentacles, and this relates very strongly to obviously wealth being the suit of Pentacles, but also that idea of holding on to wealth, to being a bit worried that whatever we have we might lose if we put ourselves out there too much, if we try a new business venture, if we spend on something that we won't then get that back again, that we won't be able to manifest that abundance for ourselves again. And obviously that's just not true. You know, the universe gives us these gifts so that we can then figure out different ways to continue to call that back into our lives. But it's perfectly understandable during a retrograde to want to be a bit cautious with money. I would say at this time, cosmically, that's no bad thing. And then let's see what a third card is coming through for us. Okay, and we also have the Six of Pentacles. Now that is very much associated with charity, with how we're giving to other people. And Mercury and retrograde specifically, obviously we're talking about communications with other people, but with these 6 planets in retrograde, we really want to be thinking about how other people are affecting us. You know, we've got all these 6 different energies calling into us, so we want to be thinking, how am I allowing other people, these other outside forces, to imprint on me and to affect me? And is there a way that I could be showing up better? Because this card is kind of a complicated energy, because we're thinking about not just how can we help other people, but also that complicated situation of asking for help as well, which can be really difficult and very tricky for a number of different reasons. It's very hard sometimes to ask for help. Sometimes there can be that generational idea of just getting on with it, just doing it on your own, and it can feel a bit scary. It can feel very vulnerable to say, actually, I'm struggling with something or I need further help and advice. But during retrograde, this is a great time to really find your center, your stability, and also find those places in your life that call you back to feeling safe, that nourish your inner child, where you can kind of say, oh, okay, I can take a step back and feel safe. Because retrogrades are all about digging deeper into ourselves and finding those safe spaces so that we can reassess not just our own behaviour, but how things in our life are affecting us as well. So we can kind of come out of this sort of secluded period, allegorically speaking, to then move forward into something a bit more healthier and happier when retrograde finishes. Okay, so those are our 6 planets currently in retrograde. This is only up until the start of October, so then things should start to settle down again. But thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you in another tarot video chat soon. I'm going to see if I can order some more of these candles. They're really nice, actually. And I've just noticed as well that the ladies put in a lovely apple and cinnamon tea bag, which is perfect for this Mabon time of year. So thank you very much, and I will speak to you all soon. Love you lots. Bye.